Okay, everyone, let's grab our seats, please. My name is Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome home. Oh, our sign's crooked. quick shout out. I don't know if you guys follow our YouTube channel, but Jason S. out of Brick, New Jersey. It's his 50th birthday today. Let's give him a round of applause for all the hard work he does. Happy birthday, Jason. Thanks for all you do. Yeah, we've reached over 500,000 people. A message of hope and recovery. It's pretty powerful. It's more than anybody could ever ask for, to be able to carry this message to people. Maybe they can't get here for whatever reason, and it's a really beautiful thing. Anyway, with that, we're going to have some fun tonight. If you like, Sunday night, we have an ongoing commitment at a treatment center every Sunday night, 7 p.m. in Quakertown. If you want to be of service, please see us after the meeting. There's no requirements. If you have a pulse, you know, the people in treatment will love to hear people on the outside in the free world, living free. And if you just like, well, come out with us and join us and see what it's like. Come on out. There's no requirements. Anyway, with that, the world's greatest chairman, all the way in from northern Pennsylvania. Please welcome Nick.
My name's Nick. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome home, everyone. Okay, welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is a 1-hour speaker meeting. It meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. The food and fellowship starts at 8 o'clock, followed by our speaker at 8:30. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 right here. Please come early and join us. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. And this is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name? Yes, in the back.
Hi, I'm Francis. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Francis, welcome. Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Sean. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Sean, welcome.
Hey, I'm Tara, I'm an alcoholic. Hey,
Welcome. Hey, Mackenzie, welcome. Okay, and welcome to everyone. The Conscious Contact encourages sponsorship with anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor. Please raise your hands. Awesome. Okay, are there any announcements for the good of AA? Okay. Our sister group is a big book study meeting that meets every Thursday at 7:30 just up the street at the Salem UCC Church, 186 East Court Street, and the coffee's on at 6:15. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. And anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs who can't afford them can put the donations in the jar on the table marked Big Book and CD donations. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown, PA, and our Facebook group. Subscribe and share. You can find our speakers there. Join our Facebook page to keep informed, and you can share upcoming events and meetings. And now with that, we have Murph to come up and read the Just for Today Prayer of Recovery. Please give Murph a nice warm welcome.
Thanks, bro. Thanks. Wait, what am I reading again? Preamble. Wait, where's the Just for Today? Oh, sorry. Sorry, guys. Hey, I'm Murph. I'm an alcoholic. Just for today, a prayer of recovery. Just for today, I will be agreeable and I will look as well as I can. Dress becomingly, talk low, and act courteously. Criticize not one bit, and not find fault with anything, and not try to improve or regulate anybody except myself. Please help me welcome Brian for the preamble.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian. I'm an alcoholic. And this is our AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. And with that, I believe Kara's going to come up here. Kara's going to read our 12 steps to recovery.
Good evening, y'all. My name's Kara, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. Hi, Kara. Welcome home. Number 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Number 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Number 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Number 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Number 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Number 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove our defects of character. Number 7, humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. Number 8, made a list of all persons we have harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Number 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Number 10, continued to take a personal inventory, and we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Number 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And step number 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Now Nick will come up to introduce our speaker. Let's give Nick a warm welcome.
Thank you, Crawfish Kara. Okay. The 7th tradition. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supported and declining outside contributions. At this time, we would like to pass the basket. And we have no dues or fees. We do have expenses. And this group provides many services. Your donations cover food, rent, big book, CDs, events, and workshops. And my friend always jokes, man, this AA is starting to get a little expensive, isn't it? Anyway, we also have a Venmo. There's a QR code in the back there, and I also have it in my phone, and you can come see me after the meeting if you want to make a donation that way. Okay, please take a moment to silence all cell phones, and please try to limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. There is absolutely no smoking on church property. Now, to introduce our speaker, a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. Tonight, we have Joe L., all the way from New York, from the Sheepshead Bay group of Brooklyn, New York. Please give Joe a nice warm welcome.
Good evening, family. My name is Joe, and I am an alcoholic. And I say I am an alcoholic, and I'm very grateful to say that I'm an alcoholic. And the most poignant evidence of my being an alcoholic is that I'm standing here with all of you wonderful people, and I would not be here had I not been blessed with the precious gift of alcoholism. It was not always a precious gift. I had to go through a lot of things to get to where I am today, which is far from where I need to be, but also far from where I was. The big book, our big book, talks about stuff that has been wrong with me and uses many different phrases and words, restless, irritable, and discontent. It talks about bedevilments, character defects, shortcomings, objectionable qualities, all different ways of saying that I lived largely a life of suffering. And I hear they say here that this group is committed to delivering a message of hope. And when I heard that, it reminded me that how important it is to have hope, considering that for decades I was hopeless. And if someone had told me in my worst of times that someday I would have hope, it would have been glorious to hear that, I don't know that I would believe it. Now, restless, irritable, and discontent, a sort of euphemistic way of saying barely wanting to live, in fact, often not even wanting to live at all, didn't start when I was 15 or 25 or 35. It started from as way back as I can remember. And I can't say factually I was born with this brokenness, with this spiritual malady, with this spiritual bankruptcy, but I believe that that is probably the case because I have memories of things that I thought and things that I did when I was I'm talking things that happened to me when I was, or things that I acted out when I was 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old. And the book also says that being restless, irritable, and discontent, and I believe that there are a lot of people in the world that are so. There are a lot of people in the world that come into the world like me, feeling uncomfortable in their own skin because I was uncomfortable in my skin. I hated myself. Often I didn't even want to be here. I was dominated by various degrees of fear, which is sometimes called anxiety, depression, selfishness. And it's not selfishness in the sense that all I cared about was me. I didn't even care about me. I didn't take care of me. My selfishness was that I was consumed with one and only one thing, if I look back on my life honestly, and that is feeling good. That kind of selfishness, not truly caring about anyone else. A lot of people are like that. But I am wired, and I use that word very generally. I don't know what I really mean by that. I am constructed in such a way that when I am in that condition, I cannot tolerate being in that condition, and I must find a solution to it. I must find a way out. Instead of actually thinking in terms of there's a problem, let's find a way to solve it. I need to escape from it. I need to have that problem out of my life. I need to have nothing in my life that causes me pain, discomfort, or anything like that. But at the age of 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, I was not drinking. I've heard people in the room say that they took their first drink when they were 9 years old. That's not my story, but the book that talks about being restless, irritable, and discontent, having these bedevilments, character defects, shortcomings, things in me that block me from the sunlight of the Spirit, which is the Spirit of God, who I've learned loves me desperately and indescribably. When I am at this young age, I still needed to get that sense of ease and comfort that the book talks about a drink provided. Yes, later on it did, but a drink was not available to me as a toddler or as a young child, so I had to find other things to do or to consume alcoholically. I ate alcoholically, I watched television alcoholically, I fantasized alcoholically, because these things provided me with that sense of ease and comfort that I needed because I was restless, irritable, and discontent. And I say that, as I said, it's almost euphemistic because it is so understates the pain that defined my existence. Pain that caused me to be a chronic truant. I missed a lot of school. And at the age of 15, it crescendoed by the authorities finally taking me to court and threatening to put me away in an institution because I refused to go to school. I now know that I didn't go to school because I was basically frightened, not a part of, and I was put on 1-year probation. I had a horrible childhood. But I've heard countless others talk about their horrible childhood. My childhood was not horrible because I was abused by my parents, emotionally, mentally, sexually, or anything like that. In my case, it was because, well, I should say somewhat because, aside from my own brokenness, I had 2 parents, and I'm not saying this to be critical of them. These are simply facts. They were not capable of parenting. One of them was mentally challenged, and the other one was severely mentally ill, and it was It was very difficult living in an environment like that. When I was about 13 years old, I was doing my family's budget. They didn't know how to do that. And I remember living in utter fear of anything and everything, whether it was real or imagined. In my early teens, I started to dabble with other things. Things that I would inhale, things that I would pop, things that I would smoke. But when I say dabble, I really mean dabble. I did not embrace any of these things. And then at the age of 15, a miracle happened. I discovered, and Bill Wilson talks about discovering alcohol. My son, who is a very modest drinker, my wife is an extremely modest drinker, and many countless others do not discover alcohol. I discovered alcohol because at the age of 15, I discovered this miraculous substance that could give me something that I had seen on television, in the movies, things that I had heard other people talk about. Happiness, freedom from fear, a sense of purpose. I remember so many times in my life getting on my knees and begging God, give me purpose. I never felt like there was a reason for me to be here. But I discovered this wonderful blessing from God himself, alcohol, that did for me what I could not do for myself. And it became my solution. It didn't solve anything. And drinking tremendous quantities and drinking daily are yets for me, but it doesn't matter. Because in the 20 years that I did rely on alcohol, I was without question mentally, emotionally, and spiritually addicted to it, reliant upon it, and I could not live without it. I once tried to stop for 6 months, and a trivial experience at work caused me to have no choice but to go home and get drunk. But our big book says liquor was but a symptom. And the more I experience and the more I learn and the more I live, I realize that everything that was ever wrong with me goes so far beyond alcohol. It was there, as I said, as far as I'm concerned, from the get-go. So I said I used it as, I viewed it as a solution, but what it really did was, it didn't cause my life to get any better. In fact, instead of solving problems that plagued my family, my parents, myself, our lives, because I was in the condition that I was in and my parents were in the condition that they were in, our lives were plummeting downhill, downhill, downhill. And the only one that had any ability to take any action to do anything about it as a teenager was me. And I couldn't do anything but escape from the pain. So it didn't solve anything, but it made it less painful and sometimes pain-free to live a life where I see everyone around me in pain and their lives being destroyed and my life being destroyed. Alcohol made it okay. It made the unacceptable acceptable. It made it okay for other people. As my father was dying of a disease that he could have gotten treatment for and maybe lived a longer and happier life, I drank, and at that time ate, watched television, did everything just to not feel the pain of knowing that my father was in that condition, rather than what quote-unquote normal people do is they take some action to get their father help. So after my father died, I had no choice but to go out into the world and to begin the journey of attempting to pretend to be one of those people. And it took a lot of effort and it took a lot of energy to try or to pretend to be a member of humanity. There were times where I had pleasant feelings. I mean, I was not in constant, unending torture 24/7. My suffering waxed and waned, it ebbed and flowed, but the fear was always there. Sometimes it was less, sometimes it was overwhelming, but for 20 years, alcohol worked until it stopped working. And that plummeted me into what I would call my first bottom. after 20 years of this relationship that I had with this miraculous substance, it stopped working. I was miserable without alcohol and not much better off with it. That put me into what I felt was a very dark place. I felt as if I were in a deep, dark hole, hoping that someone would reach down and just pick me up. And what I ended up doing was I went to a phone book. We had phone books at that time, and I opened up a Yellow Pages and I looked up Alcoholics Anonymous. And I called and told the person that I want to stop drinking, and where is there a meeting I can go to. And I remember saying this. I remember saying, alcohol is not really my problem. It's the anxiety that I'm experiencing that causes me to drink. That statement that I made to that person on the other end of the phone served as a basis for a lot of denial. Am I really one of them, or just a person who has a lot of anxiety and uses alcohol to treat it? Until I started experiencing the rooms of AA later on, and hearing so many people say things like, alcohol was not my problem, it was my solution. I came for my drinking, but I stayed for my thinking. Or the big book saying liquor was but a symptom. And I came to the realization that the people around me didn't just robotically go out and drink. There were things in their lives, spiritual, mental, emotional, that were driving them to have to pick up that bottle, that they had no choice but to pick up that bottle. We drank, I'll keep it to myself, I drank because I needed to drink. Without it, I wouldn't know what to do. So I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous after 20 years of relying on a good friend that had abandoned me now. And I stayed for less than a year. I really don't remember how long. I know it wasn't a year because I didn't celebrate an anniversary. It was for a few or several months. And I made a lot of meetings. I had a sponsor for a brief time. See, the thing is, I brought me into AA. When I went into AA, I brought me with me. So I was still the manipulative, lying, self-centered, egotistical person with low self-esteem, no self-esteem. I had never had any self-esteem from birth until that point. And I did AA my way. Not completely rebelliously, contrary to what you teach. I did a lot of it, but there's a lot of it I didn't do. And then for reasons I really don't understand, I walked away. I didn't march out the door. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say I want nothing to do with Alcoholics Anonymous anymore, but I wandered away. I had other things to do. I had a life to live, and I no longer drank, and I no longer had a desire to drink. So what am I doing here? And by the way, I should add that throughout my life, from about the age of 9 or 10, I had another, call it an addiction, I don't know what to call it, but this other thing, it was not drugs, it was the thought of suicide. It wasn't with me daily, but it was a part of my life, a noticeable and significant part of my life, and it usually went something like this. I would think of something that may happen, real or imagined, and then comfort myself with the thought that if that happens, I can kill myself. And so here I am, I'm in the rooms of AA, I walk away, and I went about the business of life for a total of about 8 years with no alcohol and virtually no recovery. After 7 years, when I was well on my way to 8 years, toward, I think somewhere around the end of the 8th year, or not quite, but somewhere between 7 and 8 years, I plummeted into an emotional, mental, and spiritual collapse. The medical profession might refer to it as a nervous breakdown. It was that and more. And the obsession to drink came back, and I remember thinking, that's not fair. I haven't had a drink in 8 years, and now I want to drink again? And the thought of suicide was now more powerfully present in my mind and in my soul than it had ever been before. Now it wasn't merely a thought, it became a plan. And what happened is, after 8 years of not drinking, I picked up one drink. for a trivial reason. And I don't remember the exact time frame, but not long thereafter, probably within a few weeks, I went out and bought a bottle of booze and used it as part of a suicide attempt, a very serious suicide attempt, because I did come very close to death, and I ended up in an intensive care unit. And after that, I was placed into a psychiatric hospital for about a month, and then transferred to a long-term facility for a few more months. And this same lying, manipulative person that I was, first of all, I was scared to death of leaving. I felt safe. But when it became obvious to me, when I decided it's time for me to leave, I then manipulated my way out. I told the doctors what I thought they wanted to hear. They would give me tests. I gave them the answers that I thought would be the answers that would get me out, and I manipulated my way out the door, and then proceeded to pretend to be a psychiatric patient, to pretend to be a therapeutic patient. And I was just doing the same thing over and over again. You know, they say here in AA, and I agree, I am insane in many ways. I've just described a lot of the symptoms of my insanity, and it's hard to do it in mere words, but it's also said that insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting different results. I was doing the same thing. No recovery, no alcohol, living without a solution. Several years after that, having done the same thing again, living without alcohol, I walked away from the psychiatric treatment, I walked away from the therapeutic treatment. Not long after, I didn't stay with it for more than a few months at most, and I just did the same thing again. And when I do the same thing, I should expect the same results, and I did get the same results. Another emotional, mental, spiritual collapse. This time I didn't try to kill myself again, but I did walk voluntarily into a psychiatric hospital emergency room and surrendered and said, I don't want to live, or something like that. And that began my second period of confinement, again for about a month in one hospital, and they transferred me to the other place again. And this time it was a total of about a year and a half of confinement, and then sort of like a halfway arrangement where I could go home on the weekends. I started to be able to go to work. But something in my heart was different. This started before I went into the hospital. The seed that had been planted many years before was germinating in my soul, in my mind, in my spirit, and somehow I came to believe that the answer was in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I had started making some meetings before my second hospitalization. And when I got out, and while I was there also, there was a time on Staten Island where I lived in a unit that was right below a place called the Alcohol Treatment Center. And on Saturday, I started to go upstairs and go to the AA meeting. And when I got out, I used this term, I crawled into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, specifically to the Sheep's Head Bay group. I went to other meetings, but this is my main home group. At this point in my life, I had no recovery to speak of. I had not had a drink in 10 years, but I was a train wreck, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Yes, liquor is but a symptom, so we have to get down to causes and conditions. The causes and conditions, if left unchallenged and untreated, I've learned will cause me great suffering, and very possibly or very probably will end up killing me. You see, I've learned from my experience that I cannot escape from alcoholism merely by not drinking. Alcoholism, active alcoholism, can destroy my liver. It can cause me to end up in prison if I crash my car. And I did drive many times with my wife and son in the car, drove while intoxicated. I could have ended up in prison. I could have killed my family or other innocent people. I could have ended up with a DUI. None of those things happened because God's grace was there. For whatever reason, God chose to grace me, my family, and my potential victims, and He spared everyone from the damage I could have done. So I crawled into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And in Sheepshead Bay, the room is not as big as this, but it's a reasonably large room, and I sat in the back. And I sat in the back because I felt that that is where I belonged. I would sit there, and in the front, on the left side, there were these group of men. And I mean, many of the people there were and are wonderful people, but I was focused on specifically this group of men who sat in the front. I now think of them as the God Squad, because what they said, what they talked about is a language that I speak 2 languages fluently, English and Spanish, but the language they were speaking is a language with which I was unfamiliar. I've learned it's the language of the heart. It's a divinely inspired language. These men were using terms like happiness, joy, freedom, peace of mind, a life beyond their wildest dreams. They had smiles on their faces. I looked amazingly at this. I certainly would love to have even a smidgen of what they were blessed with. I don't know whether I actually believed it could happen for me, but I certainly wanted it. And at one point, I walked over. I know now it was God doing this through me, in me and with me. But at some point, I walked over to that table. I walked over and asked one of those men, God rest his soul, his name is Dan Buckley. I asked that man, would you be my sponsor? And he said yes. He said yes. That was what God did through that man to help me. Now, anyone that's new, in our literature, it says that we don't claim spiritual perfection, spiritual progress. We're all a work in progress. I don't claim to have anything even close to a perfect life, and none of us do. But the life that I have today cannot be compared to the life that I used to have, and hopefully it'll maybe get a little better tomorrow. But this man said yes to me, and he then took me by the physical hand and the spiritual hand. And the reason I could say the physical hand is because many times in his apartment we did hold hands and prayed together. And he guided me through this wonderful program of recovery, this divinely inspired program of recovery that we refer to as the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. The first thing that Dan taught me that I could remember, and I worked with him on average once a week for the 11 and a half years that he was still with us until he went home to be with God, having completed his mission successfully. He was a humble man. In fact, I said to him on more than one occasion, Dad, I'm not willing to give you any credit. The only credit that I'm willing to give you is your willingness to allow God to work through you. And the first thing that I remember him impressing upon me is something that I had probably heard many times from others. I don't know that it ever penetrated or had any meaning. He said, Joe, God loves you desperately. And he wants to give you the ability to love others the way he loves you. And that's what this program is all about. I learned in my experience working with Dan Buckley in the first step that I am powerless over alcohol, but I am powerless over so much more. One could say that I'm powerless over my obsessive need to escape from the reality that is my life outside the parameters of this program, the sick and suffering life that defined my existence before being introduced to this divinely inspired gift of Alcoholics Anonymous program of recovery that was given to me and so many others freely. I learned that my life, and came to the realization that my life had always been unmanageable. I had always hated myself, as I said before. I had always had low self-esteem, dominated by fear, anxiety, depression, self-centeredness, complete and total unmanageability. And as a result, and there's a dash, my brokenness rendered me powerless over my need to do something like drink alcohol or do whatever it takes to alleviate the pain of that intolerable unmanageability. But I also have learned that what it doesn't say in the first step, it doesn't say that I am weak and that I poorly manage my life. That would make the world of difference. If this program said that I am weak and I poorly manage my life, there are solutions. I can grow stronger. I could listen to you wonderful people inspire me with words. I could read books. I can go to schools of various. I could learn to become stronger. And I can also learn how to manage my life. I just don't have the right techniques, the right understanding. There's a solution. I'm not hopeless, but I am hopeless. I am powerless. In fact, the first step says that I am going to drink again. And there's nothing that any human can do about it. It says that I am going to try to kill myself again, and I might succeed the next time. And there's nothing any human can do about it. Utter and absolute hopelessness. But thank God this is not a one-step program. It's a 12-step program. And as dark as that first step reality is that I come to embrace, the second step is exactly the opposite. But I'm not required to go to the second step. I can just go on to the bitter end and live out that doom. I have free will, but I have a choice of coming to believe that God loves me so much that he can actually do in me, with me and through me, that which it is utterly impossible for me to do on my own or with any human help. And that is to take a person like me, lift me out of that abyss that I talked about earlier, and come into the light of his love, not to live a perfect life, to live a human life, but very different from the life I used to live. A life where maybe I don't have to hate myself anymore. A life where maybe I can actually care about other people. A life where, yes, I'm still fearful to some extent, but not completely paralyzed and dominated by it. A life where I can find that service to God and others is the most exciting, fulfilling thing that I or any other person could experience. And I can come to believe that. But it doesn't mean that I have to embrace that. So we went to the third step, where I was asked to make a decision, not a resolution. My sponsor taught me that a resolution is, the evidence of a resolution is what I think and what I say. It's like what I do on December 31st and then violate that promise by January 2nd. That's a resolution. A decision is not evidenced by what I think or what I say. A decision is evidenced by what I do. If I decide to go on a trip to Europe, but you don't see me packing, if you don't see me buying tickets, if you don't see me taking time off from work, that's not a decision. Unless I am taking action, I've not made a decision. And what I do about that decision is I make a simple prayer. It's an offering. You see, I'm still a train wreck, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I've come to believe in my doom. I've come to believe in the light of a loving God, and I've come to make a decision, but I really haven't changed very much. So I make a simple offering. I offer myself to you, to thee, as the book says, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Yeah, I've been in the prison. I've been in my own prison all my life. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties. Why? So that victory over those difficulties may bear witness to those I would help of thy will, thy love, and thy way of life. It's an offering. And after making that prayer, I then learn from our literature that even if that has helped me, it would have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in myself that had been blocking me. Blocking me from what? From the sunlight of God's Spirit. So I have to, I made a decision, but where are the instructions in our book on how to carry out that decision? I learned the instructions begin in step 4 and go on through step 12. I made the decision, I say the prayer daily to this day, but I have to take action so that that decision is real and it's not merely a resolution. I do an inventory. We talk about the fourth step inventories, but in those in that fourth step there are prayers transformative prayers, life-saving prayers. I talked about how I was dominated by fear. Well, there's a prayer in the fourth step. The fourth step asks me to list my fears, but it also asks, it explains to me why I've been so fearful. It says that I've been so fearful because I've relied on me all my life rather than upon God. This life of self-reliance destined me for to have a life dominated by fear. But if I can turn from that life and begin the lifelong journey of surrendering to God who loves me and live a God-reliant life, not perfectly, because I fall down every day. But if I make that decision, I can perhaps be lifted up from that state of fearfulness, which I thought would plague me till the day I die. And the program asks me to say a simple prayer. God, remove my fear and direct my attention to what you would have me be. That's transformative. This higher power that we talk about, my Creator, who loves me desperately, can actually reach into my soul and teach me how to live a different life where fear is not going to dominate me, paralyze me, crush me as it has been. Thank God for that fourth step. And there are other prayers. You know, it says in the fourth step that resentment is the number one offender. And if it's not taken care of, I'm going to drink again. And if I drink, I'm going to die. There's a lot of threats in that big book about, if I don't do this, I'm going to die. I mean, it says, above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. So, again, in the fourth step, yes, I list the resentments, talk about how angry I am, but it teaches me to look at these people that I'm resentful at, maybe in a different way. Perhaps they're spiritually sick, just like me. And then I pray to have that anger removed. And I pray for them as if they were my best friends. How can I be angry at someone that I'm asking God to bless? Someone that I know in the rooms, I don't know that she originated this, but she says what her prayer boils down to this: God, bless them and change me. So I believe, you know, they say the spiritual principle behind the fourth step is courage. And I'm not here to argue that. But I believe that the fourth step is life-saving and transformative. And then the next thing that I'm called upon to do is to sit down with a team. The team consists of God, myself, and another human being. And we talk about my entire life story. The object being to learn about those causes and conditions, so that we can do something about those causes and conditions. And you know, if the purpose of this program is to inspire me and teach me and empower me to be of service, how can I be of service as a train wreck? I need to be changed if I'm going to be used by God. So that process is going further and further. I'm now acknowledging this. I'm acknowledging it to myself. I'm acknowledging it to God. But I'm also making it real by saying it in front of a witness. And then with that witness's help, we then learn what is wrong with me. And we learn that a lot of what's wrong with me, I don't want to let go of. And a lot of it I do. The stuff that's wrong with me, the quote-unquote character defects, that I'm not really willing to let go of because they've been coping mechanisms. They've enabled me to survive those things. I pray to God, the sixth step teaches me, and I ask Him for the willingness. I know someone in the rooms who says the best that I can come up with sometimes is to pray for the willingness to become willing. And then I go to 7, because there are things that are crushing me, that are standing in the way of my usefulness to God and to my fellows. And I can come before Him and say, maybe not with pure, total honesty, but strongly enough, say, I am ready, take this from me. And when I pray the 7-step prayer, it also says in that prayer, the reason I'm asking God to change me, to heal me, to make me better, it's not because I want him to make me happier. It's not because I want him to make me feel good. It says in that prayer, I pray that you now remove from me every single character defect that stands in the way of my usefulness to you and to my fellows. Because the solution, the theme that's working through here is letting go of this selfish life and trying to be empowered by God to live a selfless life. You know, another thing my sponsor taught me at the very beginning, he took me to page 20, which talks about this. This is a 164-page program, yet on page 20, it says that our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depends on our constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. It's telling me that at the beginning, and the program is taking me the direction of fulfilling what it says on page 20. When I say that 7-step prayer, when I said it the first time and when I say it daily, in my humble opinion, in my view, I'm basically restating the 3rd-step prayer, but more powerfully. Instead of I offer myself to thee, I'm saying I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. And instead of saying take away my difficulties, I'm saying take away, I pray that you now remove from me every character defect that stands in the way of my usefulness to you and to my fellows. It's because I've gone through this process. I now know so much more of what's wrong with me, what has caused me to suffer, and more importantly, what's caused me to cause other people to suffer. So I can say that prayer. And the process of 1 through 7 does not make me perfect. Nothing will ever make me perfect. I serve a perfect God. I don't need to be perfect. But what it does do is it amends me. It changes me. It puts me in the position where now maybe God can make a little bit of use for me. Whereas before, I was a burden on God, a burden on my wife, a burden on my son, a burden on everybody around me. I was a burden. And now, by the grace of God, I think I'm somewhat of a contributor in my family, at work, even in the rooms of AA, not a burden. But now that I've come to, what's the next thing that I do? Do I go out and save the alcoholic world? Do I go out and help the newcomer? Yeah, I could maybe do a little of that, but that's not where the emphasis is. These steps are in order for a reason. And after 7 and after making that daily declaration, I'm taken to step 8 and 9, where the people and institutions that I've damaged because of what has been wrong with me, to the extent possible, that damage needs to be corrected. I need to do something about the wrongs that I have done and the rights that I have failed to do. How do I just jump over my mother, jump over my wife, jump over my son, jump over my friend, jump over everybody and say, I'm too busy, I gotta help the newcomer. Live with it. No. These steps are in order for a reason. 8 and 9 come before 12. Step 6 and 7. I'm supposed to be a different person. This stuff is fear, laziness, selfishness, jealousy, anger. It's supposed to be gone, removed. But wait a minute. This morning I woke up in fear. How is that possible? Because this is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. It's a journey, not a destination. My character defects will come up. Hopefully less frequently and hopefully less intensely and severely, but they will come up. I'm still a human being living in the human condition. Thank God we have a step 10, so that when, not if, these things happen, I'm given directions on what to do about it. I'm taught to go to God again, just like in that 5th step. I'm taught to speak to a witness about it, a human being. I'm taught that if this character defect caused me to do damage, I am taught that I am to make amends immediately. And then, consistent again, with all of that stuff starting on page 20. What does it say in the 10th step? I resolutely turn my thoughts to how I can help someone. There's that theme again. Help, help, service, service. It's throughout the program. And the 10th step has the 9th step has tremendous promises. You know, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. I had never known any freedom or any happiness. And this program is promising me some freedom and happiness, things that I had never known. And in the 10th step, It's promising me sanity. I had never known anything about sanity, ever, at any point in my life. And the 10th step promises me, it says, by now sanity will have returned. In my case, didn't return. I was introduced to something that I had never known. It was an introduction to sanity, some degree of sanity. It promises me in the 10th step that I have been placed in a position of neutrality with regard to alcohol. I don't love it, I don't hate it, I have nothing to do with it. It's not a part of my existence. I don't think about it, I don't ponder it. The problem, it says, has been removed so long as I keep in fit spiritual condition. Because it does say that what I really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. And I come to step 11, the creator. You know, Bill Wilson calls God creator in the 7th step. In how it works, he says there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. In the second tradition, it says there's but one ultimate authority, a loving God. God loves us. And in step 11, you teach me that I can have a two-way relationship, conscious contact, which is what this group is named after. I can have conscious contact with the creator of everything, the God who removed my obsession to drink, the God who is changing me a day at a time to be a little bit better than I was yesterday, and hopefully a little bit better tomorrow if I'm blessed with another day of life. That God, I'm able to have conscious contact with God, to not only pray, but listen and learn. I thought I came in here just to stop drinking. Wow. AA offers so much more. But if I had not been transformed, if I'm not being transformed, how do I put down the drink if the causes and conditions that caused me to drink are still dominating my life? And having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, a spiritual awakening. You know, when it says a spiritual awakening in step 12, obviously it's presuming that I came in asleep spiritually, or in my case I would say comatose spiritually. And this is what I say about that spiritual awakening. You know, it says here, it says that rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. And the 9th step promises, it says, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development. I believe that if someone is painstaking about this, who is thoroughly following this path, who is going through this not as an intellectual endeavor, like you do something in school and take notes and pass an exam, but as a spiritual experience. If someone is experiencing this, living this, not just learning it and spewing out facts and figures to others, but embracing this as a way of life, I believe it is impossible not to be spiritually awakened by these steps. Impossible. And then being spiritually awakened, not, again, sorry to repeat myself, not being perfected, but awakened. This program asks me to try to do two things. Thank God for that word, try. Because I can't do any of this anything close to perfectly. But I can try to carry this message to others and to try to practice these principles in all my affairs. And I do try. And I know I could do more, and I know I could do better, but I do try. And today, if you were to look at my life, you'd say, well, Joe still works for the same company that he worked for before this. He's still married to the same woman that he was married to before this. He still has the same son. He lives in the same apartment. And you might say, it seems that he has pretty much the same life. So what's the difference? The difference is night and day. Because in the things that matter, my life is completely different. Completely different. I am today not a burden to my family, and not a perfect member of the family either, and never will be, but a contributor, a problem solver, a person who cares, not, you know, today I actually care about the people in my family. It's not just I want them to be problem-free, because when they're problem-free, it's not going to bother my life. That's the way it used to be. I actually care about their happiness. Today, when I'm at work and I sit in the president of my company's office and I'm with a yellow pad and we're having a talk, I don't feel as I used to feel like, doesn't he know what a piece of crap is sitting across from him? If he knew the person that he's working with, that works for him, he'd probably open the door and say, get out of here. I don't feel that way. Today, I actually care about myself. I love myself. I don't hate myself. I experience fear, but it's not paralyzing and crushing fear. I'm not afraid to get out of bed in the morning. And today, a day at a time, I have not had a drink in many years. I have not had a serious desire to drink in many years, but also, and this is a miracle of miracles of miracles of miracles that I can't say to God thank you enough publicly. I want to thank you, God, publicly, that a day at a time, for many years, I have not had a serious thought of killing myself. And that, for me, without question, is a miracle. I want to thank all of you for giving me the opportunity to share the pain that I've experienced in life, the hope that Alcoholics Anonymous has blessed me with, and the progressively happier life that I'm experiencing, still filled with challenges, but not with hopelessness anymore. I want to thank you for being here, not for me, but for yourselves. I'm so happy for every single one of you, because if you're here, and this is an open meeting, so some of you may not be members, and some of you may be thinking of becoming members, and others may already be members. I want to thank you for giving God the chance to do for you what he has done for so many others of us, because he loves us and he empowers us with his love to love each other. Thank you.
Oh, powerful stuff. Again, my name's Brian. I'm an alcoholic. First and foremost, I want to thank Joe for coming out here tonight, delivering an incredible message of hope and recovery to our group here. We have food and fellowship starting here every week at 8 o'clock, so feel free to get here early, enjoy the coffee, the food we put out. If you want to get involved with this group, even better. And get involved in some service work. If you want to help us out with a little bit of service work after the meeting, we could always use help putting the chairs away. We put away the chairs in the front here. The ones on the table stay where they are. But most importantly, if you're out there and if you're new or if you're struggling or if you've been coming around for a while and it's just not working like Joe described, hang out with us after the meeting. We'll be all breaking down the meeting. There'll be a group of us here. We'd love to talk with you, get you some phone numbers, get you some meetings, really get you involved in the solution here a little bit. But it's customary for us to thank our speakers. They come here on their own time and expense, so we do usually form a line in the front here, and we thank our speakers on a personal level. Thanks to everybody for helping out with the meeting tonight. Thanks to Dom for bringing the pizzas. Appreciate that. Thanks to Howard for taking care of the kitchen back there. Thanks to our greeters, our readers, and most importantly, let's thank our speaker, Joe, one more time. And if you do care to join us, we have a beautiful way of closing down the meeting. We are going to circle up, and we are going to close with our Lord's Prayer. And if you do care to join us, we will close down the meeting with a brief moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholic inside and outside of these rooms, followed by our Lord's Prayer. Our Father,